They all thought it was just a harmless little itch, a tiny dry spot behind the ear, under the arm, or near the collarbone. But what if I told you that 99% of seniors ignore this exact sign until it's too late? It doesn't hurt. It doesn't bleed. And yet, it could be the very first warning of something far more dangerous, even life-threatening. Today, I'm going to show you what to look for, where it hides, and what saved the lives of those who caught it in time. Because after 60, the body whispers before it screams. Most seniors have heard that changes in the skin should be watched, but very few know where the first signs often show up. It's not always on your face or hands, where people expect it. In fact, the most overlooked spot is somewhere most never think to check, behind the ears, under the breasts, or even between the toes. These areas are warm, often hidden, and can quietly host something dangerous. What seems like a dry patch today could be the earliest whisper of something far more serious tomorrow. It starts small, maybe just a tiny itch, a little redness, a spot that looks off but doesn't hurt. That's exactly why it gets ignored. But ignoring it, especially in old age, can be costly. Because when it comes to senior health, what you can't see or choose not to see can hurt you. Let me paint a picture. Mr. Harold, 74 years old, noticed a scaly patch behind his ear while trimming his hair. It didn't hurt. It didn't even itch much. So, like most people in old age, he brushed it off. Probably just dry skin, he thought. But 2 months later, it had grown slightly and changed color. That's when his daughter insisted he see a doctor. The result? It was a melanoma in situ, caught just in time. Harold got lucky, but so many others don't, simply because this particular area isn't part of their routine check. That's why knowing where to look is often the first line of defense in senior health. The reason this spot is so commonly ignored is that it's not in our direct line of sight. Seniors may check their arms, neck, or legs, but few bend and twist to look under folds, near the scalp line, or inside creases. Plus, in old age, the skin goes through changes naturally, so it's easy to assume that discoloration or roughness is just part of getting older. But here's the truth. Longevity doesn't come from ignoring the body's signals. It comes from knowing how to listen to the quiet ones, especially the ones hiding in plain sight. These silent spots don't scream, they whisper, and you only hear them if you're paying close attention. And what's fascinating is that these areas, behind the ear, under the breast, between the buttocks or toes, have 3 things in common. They're moist, they're warm, and they're rarely checked. That makes them perfect environments for problems to grow unnoticed. For example, fungal infections, eczema, or precancerous spots can thrive there. In the elderly, skin becomes thinner and more vulnerable, which makes these silent zones even more important. So what's the takeaway? If you've never looked in these areas, it might be time. Even once a month, a quick check with a mirror or with the help of a loved one could be a life-saving habit. Think about it like checking the oil in your car. You don't wait until smoke is pouring out of the hood, right? You check regularly, just in case. Your skin, especially in old age, deserves the same attention. If you can check once a week while showering or ask a caregiver during routine care, you're building a habit that supports your longevity and well-being. One easy tip: use a hand mirror or take a photo with your phone to document any spots. If something new appears or something old starts changing, you'll have a clear reference. Prevention doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be consistent. Now, what's most surprising is not just the location of the spot, but the reason most elderly people miss it altogether. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover next. You'd be amazed at how many elderly individuals overlook early skin warnings simply because they don't feel like symptoms. There's no bleeding, no sharp pain, and no sudden fever. Just a little itch, or sometimes nothing at all. That's the trap. When we think of illness, we expect dramatic signs. But in old age, the body becomes more subtle. It speaks in whispers, not in sirens. Seniors often tell themselves, it's just dry skin, or it's probably from the weather. And because they've lived through decades of small discomforts, they've learned to tough it out. Unfortunately, that resilience can work against senior health when it masks early warnings. One of the most common mistakes in the elderly is trusting familiarity over investigation. This spot's always been here, they'll say, or worse, it doesn't hurt, so it can't be serious. But that logic no longer applies after 60. The skin changes dramatically with age, losing elasticity, moisture, and the ability to regenerate quickly. That same mole you've had since your 40s could evolve, or a harmless patch could quietly shift in color and shape. That's why dermatologists often say, when in doubt, check it out. Because the body in old age doesn't always send pain signals, it sends visual ones. Another big reason these signs go unnoticed is the reliance on routine. Seniors may have a long-standing hygiene ritual that never changes. Shower, dry, lotion. But they often skip checking new areas or can't easily see them anymore. Vision changes, mobility decreases, and suddenly, a spot that would have been obvious 20 years ago goes undetected. One helpful habit is to use a small magnifying mirror to scan hard-to-reach places every couple of weeks. Better yet, create a skin check routine with a spouse or caregiver, just like a dental or eye checkup, but from the comfort of home. And then there's the emotional side. Many elderly people avoid talking about new symptoms because they're afraid of what it might mean. What if it's cancer? They whisper internally. So they pretend it isn't there. But here's the truth. Early action saves lives. In fact, skin cancer caught early has a nearly 100% survival rate. That's not fear, that's power. When seniors face these things head-on, they reclaim control over their own longevity. And honestly, most of the time, the spot turns out to be harmless. But without checking, you'll never know. That uncertainty steals peace of mind. Take the case of Mrs. Lillian, 81 years old. She had a tiny pink dot near her armpit that kept reappearing. She dismissed it as a rash from detergent. But after a gentle nudge from her granddaughter, she finally saw a doctor. It was a precancerous lesion. Treated on the spot. No surgery, no chemo, no fear. If she had kept ignoring it, the story might have ended very differently. That's the difference between worry and wisdom. One delays action, the other saves lives. So, the real question isn't, should I be worried about this? The question is, have I been paying close enough attention? And once you start looking deeper, you might begin to wonder, what does that odd little spot really mean? When a senior discovers a persistent itch, patch, or unusual spot, the first thought is often no big deal. But beneath the surface, it could be something more serious, and it's vital to understand the possibilities. One of the most overlooked diagnoses in the elderly is melanoma in situ. This is skin cancer in its earliest form, right before it invades deeper layers. The good news? It's treatable. The bad news? Most people miss it. Other possibilities include actinic keratosis, a precancerous rough patch, or basal cell carcinoma, which may look like a waxy bump or open sore. The signs are subtle, but the stakes are high. Let's simplify that. If the spot is changing, growing, itching, or bleeding, it needs to be checked. If it has irregular borders, unusual colors, or keeps coming back, it could be a red flag. In senior health, the skin becomes the mirror of internal changes. What looks like a dry patch today could be the body saying, "Please notice me." That's not paranoia, it's prevention. Remember, not every spot is cancerous, but every spot that changes should be respected, not ignored. That simple shift in mindset could be the secret to longevity for many seniors watching right now. Sometimes, the most dangerous spots look the most innocent. A flesh-colored bump that just won't go away. A spot that bleeds when you dry off with a towel. Even a flat brown mark that seems to darken slowly. These are all potential signals. For example, one gentleman had a spot on his temple that looked like a freckle, but it turned out to be a basal cell carcinoma. His doctor removed it in minutes. And he went on with life as usual. No drama, no scars. That's what early detection does. It turns crisis into inconvenience. And here's a key detail that often gets missed. Not all skin issues in old age are related to sun exposure. Many seniors believe that if a spot is in a place the sun doesn't hit, it must be harmless. Not true. Melanomas can grow in areas never exposed to sunlight, like under the nails, on the scalp, or even between the toes. This is why blanket assumptions can be dangerous. Skin cancer doesn't always follow the rules. It hides, it waits, and it preys on our inattention. That's why partnering with your doctor matters. Annual skin exams for seniors should be as normal as a cholesterol test. And if you spot something between visits, don't wait. Call. Describe it. Ask questions. Doctors would rather examine 100 harmless spots than miss the one that mattered. As uncomfortable as it may be to bring it up, it's far better than silently letting something grow. This isn't about fear, it's about responsibility. About giving yourself the best odds for a longer, healthier life. Because in the world of senior health, what seems minor might just be major in disguise. And knowing what not to ignore, that's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. When it comes to skin changes in old age, not all spots are created equal. Some are harmless, sure, but others carry silent warnings. The key lies in 3 specific traits: color, texture, and behavior. First, let's talk about color. A spot with multiple shades, brown, black, even hints of red or blue, should always raise a red flag. Uniform color is usually less concerning, but when a mole starts looking like a patchwork quilt, it's time to call the doctor. Seniors often dismiss this by saying, "It's just old skin." But skin in old age doesn't change color without reason. Second comes texture. Any spot that becomes scaly, crusty, or starts oozing should be taken seriously. Many elderly individuals assume these are caused by dry weather or allergies. But in reality, that dry patch could be actinic keratosis, a known precursor to skin cancer. If you rub your finger over a spot and it feels rough, gritty, or flaky, even if it's tiny, that's your body whispering. Use a phone to take a picture once a week. If it gets worse or changes, don't wait. Early action could save years of discomfort, or more. Third is behavior. A spot that bleeds, itches persistently, or never fully heals deserves immediate attention. Think of it this way. If you had a cut on your hand that wouldn't stop bleeding for weeks, you'd seek help, right? But seniors often let skin wounds linger for months, assuming they'll go away. That's not normal, especially if it's in an odd location, like the scalp, under the breast, or along the back. These are classic hiding places for serious conditions. In elderly skin, healing is slower, so a wound that doesn't improve may be more than just a nuisance. Let's look at an example. Mr. James, age 77, had what he thought was a bug bite on his shoulder. It was small, red, and itchy, but after 3 weeks, it started scabbing, then bleeding. Still, he put antibiotic cream on it and went about his day. His wife noticed it again 6 weeks later. It hadn't healed. That's when they got it checked. Diagnosis? Squamous cell carcinoma. It was removed in 1 visit, but it could have been worse. Had he continued ignoring it, it may have spread. That's how quickly things can change. Another mistake is waiting for pain. Many elderly people think that if it doesn't hurt, it's not serious. But with skin conditions, pain often arrives last. By then, damage may already be significant. So don't wait for pain to be your guide. Use your eyes and your common sense. If something looks new, feels different, or behaves oddly, check it. Treat your skin like your most honest friend. When it acts up, it's telling you something important. And in the world of senior health, those messages are worth listening to. But let's say you spot something today. Right now, what should you do next? That's where our next step becomes not only important, but potentially life-saving. First of all, take a deep breath. If you found a suspicious spot, it doesn't mean you're in danger. It means you're paying attention, and that's powerful. The very first thing you should do is document it. Use your phone to take a clear photo in good lighting. Try to include a coin or your fingertip in the image to show scale. Then, write down today's date and a few quick notes. Is it itching, bleeding, painful? Is it flat or raised? That record could be the difference between guessing and knowing when you speak to your doctor. Next, call your primary care physician or dermatologist and request an appointment, within the next week if possible. Be specific. Say, I've noticed a new spot that's changed in color and texture, and I'm over 60. That phrase alone gets attention. In senior health, time matters. The earlier you act, the simpler the treatment often is. You don't need to panic, but you do need to prioritize. Think of it like putting out a small flame before it becomes a fire. One call, one visit. That's all it might take. Now, let's say your doctor can't see you right away. Don't let that delay action. Many elderly people stop here and wait weeks. Instead, take the initiative. Ask for a telemedicine appointment, send the photo via email, or visit an urgent care clinic that handles skin checks. In many cities, pharmacies and clinics offer walk-in dermatology screenings. You deserve answers now, not in a month. Remember, in old age, hesitation can come at a cost. Taking action today protects your longevity tomorrow. If you're worried about being a bother, let me stop you right there. Doctors would much rather reassure you about a harmless spot than treat you too late. Your concern is valid. Your time is valuable. And your health, especially in the elderly years, is worth protecting. Even if the doctor says it's nothing, you'll sleep better. And if it is something, you've caught it early enough to make a difference. That peace of mind, that's priceless. Here's another practical step. Share your concern with someone you trust. A spouse, a son or daughter, a close friend. Let them know you've noticed something and are taking action. You'd be surprised how comforting it is to have someone checking in, reminding you of your appointment, or just listening to your worries. Longevity isn't just about medicine. It's about having support, staying proactive, and refusing to let fear delay what matters. Because every early diagnosis started with a simple observation, and many happy endings began with one brave step. Speaking of which, what happens when seniors do catch it early? Well, that's where real-life stories begin to show us what's possible. Let me tell you about Margaret, age 79. She was brushing her hair one morning when she felt a tiny bump behind her ear, barely noticeable. It didn't hurt. It wasn't discolored. But something about it felt different. Instead of brushing it off, she asked her granddaughter to take a closer look. That small act of curiosity saved her life. A biopsy revealed it was a very early-stage melanoma. Margaret had it removed with a simple outpatient procedure and has been cancer-free ever since. Today, she walks her dog every morning, volunteers at her church, and reminds every senior she meets, check behind your ears. Then there's Robert, a retired teacher who loved gardening. One summer, he noticed a persistent pink patch on his forearm. It wasn't painful, it just kept coming back, no matter how much lotion he used. His wife insisted he get it checked just in case. Good thing he listened. It turned out to be actinic keratosis, a precancerous lesion that could have developed into something far worse. His dermatologist treated it quickly with cryotherapy. Now, Robert still tends to his roses, but with a sun hat, long sleeves, and a story to tell. These real-life stories aren't rare. In fact, they're more common than people realize, especially among elderly individuals who take ownership of their health. The common thread? Awareness. None of these seniors panicked. They simply paid attention, acted early, and refused to let fear make decisions for them. That's a kind of wisdom that grows with age. In old age, the quiet signs matter most, and those who live longest are often the ones who learn how to listen. Longevity isn't about never getting sick. It's about catching the small things before they become big. It's about trusting your instincts when something feels off. And sometimes, it's about accepting help from those who love you, even when you're not sure it's necessary. Whether it's a caregiver who spots a change, a grandchild who notices a bump, or a friend who says, You should check that out. These moments can become turning points. And here's the most beautiful part. Early detection not only adds years to your life, it adds life to your years. Margaret said that after her diagnosis, she began walking more, eating better, and even joined a seniors yoga class. Why? Because that scare reminded her that life is precious and the body deserves care and attention. That one little spot made her fall in love with living again. And isn't that what we're all after? So now that you've seen what's possible, the question is, what will you do with what you've just learned? So, let me ask you, when was the last time you really looked at your own skin, not just with your eyes, but with curiosity and care? In old age, every wrinkle tells a story, but every new spot might be a message. Are you listening? Or are you still brushing it off, hoping it'll go away? This isn't about fear. It's about power. Power to notice. Power to act. Power to protect yourself before someone else has to. And if you're sitting there thinking, maybe I should check that little patch on my back, then now is the moment. Not tomorrow. Not when it gets worse. Now. Because the elderly who live the longest are not the ones who are the strongest, but the ones who pay attention. Let me provoke you a little. What if that small spot you're ignoring is the exact reason you're here watching this today? What if this video is your wake-up call? And what if 5 minutes of attention could add 5 years to your life? Isn't that worth it? Drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever found a strange spot and ignored it? Or did you catch something early and turn it around? Your story could help someone else live longer. Let's talk about it down below. And if you found this video helpful, do yourself and your loved ones a favor. Click subscribe, hit the bell, and join our community. This isn't just about skin. It's about paying attention to life. And around here, we're all in this together.